This is a podcast presented by
Hard to Find Media.
Subscribe to Hard to Find Media on youtube.com/Hard to Find Media Network. This shit is free. Share it. Blast it.
You give me the sweetest taboo.
All right, hello and welcome to the Hardy Boys, a podcast about Taboo, the FX and BBC co-produced limited prestige television series starring and co-created by Tom Hardy. That old bag of bones. Hardly. But, my name is Jason.
I'm Mac, here every week. One day late.
Day late, but not
Taboo Wednesday.
Yeah. 'Cause yesterday was Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I had to have a very romantic evening of watching Gone Girl and The Exorcist.
Wait, that's how you spent Valentine's Day?
Yeah, it was fun.
Your sweetie.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, my heart belongs to Tom.
So earnest.
It really, yeah, it does. I mean, not so much after this week's episode.
Yeah, I was about to say. We'll get to that.
I mean,
but
that's Delaney and Tom are two different people. One's an actor, one's the role.
fair enough.
Okay, so clearing up some unanswered questions from last week. What is the Irish Code of 1777?
Is that a question for me that I can't answer?
No, I've got our old friend Wikipedia right here to clarify somewhat. Basically, if I'm reading this correctly, and it's also referred to as the Irish Code Duello.
Okay.
It was basically just a set of rules for duels rules. That it doesn't, in here, it doesn't like specifically cite any of the stuff that came up in the episode, like no second shots and blah, blah,
Right.
blah. But it does imply that this was the first time that like it was just sort of codified that you used guns in duels. Because
Oh, okay.
before then it had been like swords or whatever.
Right, yeah.
And this was like a way to make it a little more dignified. So it wasn't just guys like hacking each other to pieces.
I don't know that I feel that it's actually more dignified, but I can appreciate the point.
In the context of something as undignified as a duel or icing someone, it's important to have some ground rules.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the world operates because rules are in place. So if you got to plug a guy, you might as well do it according to a code. One question, though, you said no second shots. Would that even be a plausible thing? Don't you have to, like, reload? Like, isn't it like a musket thing? You couldn't have multiple rounds. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not, like, a big gun guy, so I don't know.
Well, great. Now we have to look that up next week.
It's inevitable. I'm sorry. It's my curious mind.
A lot, Mac. And then the other thing that we were supposed to investigate was the other stuff by this director of the second half of the season, a fellow named Anders Engström. And I'm going to tell you some stuff he's directed, and you tell me if you've heard of any of it.
Okay.
A television series called Jordskot.
Nope, doesn't mean a thing to me.
A movie called Veras, The Path of the Righteous Man.
No, never heard of it.
Kiss of Evil.
No.
Morden.
No.
Wallander.
That sounds familiar, but I don't know what it is.
Stickmordet, Beratelsen en Ratsskandal.
Yeah, no. I don't think I know this person's work.
Um,
They are bringing some real bummer vibes to this show.
that's for sure. Like,
That was last week and this week.
Yeah.
Same director?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this person is really just bringing me down.
Same. And he made a movie about Y2K. The Millennium Catastrophe. Computer Crash 2000.
All right.
Okay, Anders. Yeah, what's swimming around in that head of yours? You're a dark individual, my friend.
Yeah, I don't know how much to peg on him and how much on the material, but there's just been like a notable, like, I've just felt very heavy after the last week was bad, but this week is just like, ugh.
I know, and I don't think it's just the fried chicken. That's
no.
making me feel so heavy and weighed down.
Yeah, no. This was definitely not an ideal, like, hump day. Let's have a hang.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's buoy our spirits.
Yeah, that's what we could use right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there may be another X factor in the weirdness of this week's episode, and I mean, not even just weirdness, but like general bleakness. Would be this is the first co-writing credit for Chips Hardy.
Yeah, man.
Tom's dad, Chips.
Yep.
So he co-wrote it with Stephen Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first thing we see this ep is Delaney's mom, as we've come to know her in her makeup and her long dress in a lake. And it's a vision that Delaney's having. He's doing what he'd do, which is like brood and stare out a window like the filthiest Michael Mann character.
Yeah.
And he gets in an argument with Brace.
He gets up and Brace's shit because Brace is like,
your dad was a good man. And Delaney's like, a good man who killed his wife for convenience. And then Brace is like, oh, always so cow-eyed for your dear mother. Well, guess what, man? You don't know shit about your mom.
yeah. And basically just says that Delaney's dad saved him from his mom, who was insane, and tried to, like, drown him.
As
right?
an infant.
As an infant.
In
And
the
that's
lake.
the thing that we keep seeing over and over again. Like, the fragment, seemingly, of her going out in the lake with all the makeup on is to, like, drown her kid, like, push him under. And this imagery is going to reappear in this episode specifically. A lot.
Bombshell.
Yeah.
His mom tried to kill him.
But also Delaney's just like, you should stop talking. It's obvious, like, Delaney does not enjoy having his buttons pushed when it comes to talking about his mom.
See, what's weird about this that I don't quite get is, like, how could he be having these visions, It's not like it's a flashback that, like, a toddler's or an infant's gonna...
I understand that, but I would not get too caught up in logic in a show that plays very fast and loose with magic, though I can appreciate your perspective.
that's
things are
where I was
very
like, yeah,
fudgeable.
probably magic happened.
Yeah, I think anytime there's some shit like that, you just have to be like, oh, it's magic.
Yeah, and so Hardy's like, fuck you, Brace, I hate you, Dad.
Yeah.
And then he goes to visit Bedlam, the insane asylum where
His
Delaney
boss had
Sr.
his mom
Yeah.
committed, which is now abandoned.
Yeah, very
So-
creepy.
Yeah, real creepy.
He finds his mother's tombstone outside. He finds, like, dank-ass torture beds and stuff, and what appears to be her room.
It's very, like, abandoned, recent, like, haunted house
Yes,
kind of
totally.
situation.
But yeah, he does find this one particular brick wall with some, Native American-style art drawn on it in chalk.
And chains.
Yeah, so he's like, well, this is where my mom's was.
Yeah.
And then is he hanging out by the docks, just sort of now brooding and staring into a body of water? Yeah. Winter arrives, and he's like, go away. And she's like, I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of the devil they say you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, oh yeah? And he gets all up in her face, speaking in that language we're too ignorant to know or recognize.
Yeah.
Holding what appears to be like a claw or a tooth? Or is that his knife?
I think it might be his gross knife.
Okay. Yeah, that thing gets a lot of...
It's a lot of airtime.
he gets a workout
It
this week.
should get, like, the second credit in, like, the Taboo creds every week.
I mean, I'd give it the width.
With knife and
with, like...
Jonathan Price.
with, like, stabbing me like, oh, no, as knife. And he scares her off. Because he wants to be alone, I guess, and stare at the water.
Yeah. As he's wont to do. Like, water in general, obviously, has been, like, a recurring motif in the show, but this episode, it's just, like, keeps coming back, like, every other scene.
Yeah.
It's, like, Hardy being near water, having a vision of water, literally being in water.
Yes, totally. Using his Airstream. Just kidding. Is that what they call those? SodaStream. That's what I meant to say. The thing that carbonates your beverage.
I know what you're talking
Okay.
about. I should get one as a big sparkling water guy. Anyways.
We all should. Oh, wait, but there was a whole reason why people stopped buying it. I just remembered.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like money was going to Israel or something.
Oh, it's like a politicized thing?
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating.
Which created a real opening for La Croix.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's La Croix kind of whatever.
I don't know, man. I'm speaking to a man in a Rainier baseball cap, but I was just about to say, brand loyalty is such a strange thing to me.
Yeah, that's true. I'm more of a grapefruit Perrier man myself, but
okay. Listen to Mr. Grapefruit Perrier.
You gotta have standards, Jason.
And I do want to correct myself. She says that they refer to him as the African devil.
Yeah. That's another thing that, again, recurs throughout the show, but this episode, there's just a lot of consistency with, like, what's going down. But our next scene is an interesting one because our beloved chemist,
Chandley,
is explaining the fact that they have to... What's the name of the new chemical?
Chlorate.
Okay. They have to mix that into their gunpowder in order to expedite things. So he is explaining that they have to continue to stir, otherwise they're going to blow up this fucking farm.
Nonstop. And he does so with this great metaphor where it's like, you know, it's a stable process like a marriage, and then you introduce this radical element like a baby.
Right.
And it's a wonderful metaphor. I probably should have written the whole thing down, but it's like it talks about it might burp and like it's gonna take a lot of work and you're not gonna sleep.
Yeah.
And
also
you have to be very delicate with it.
Yeah. And so we got a bunch of, you know, big heavy hitters who are doing this during, but also poor that poor
Robert,
kid.
his illegitimate son.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least neglected. I mean, we assume he's illegitimate and neglected.
It seems like a bit of both.
Yeah, he's enlisted to participate, and you're just like, man, it's a little kid.
Yeah, and they put him on varsity. He's like first string.
I know, but he's gonna have some guns when he's done, man.
Yeah, like we were talking about, it does feel like a Wheel of Sorrow Conan the Barbarian thing, where it's like, I can't imagine a better recipe to make a little Tom Hardy a big Tom Hardy.
Meanwhile, back at the East India Company HQ, two of Strange's stooges, the guys we see the most, the one Africa Bureau guy and then the other sort of sunken-eyed dude, or
British Alex Winter.
Yes, exactly. They're hanging out by the fire, toasting their butts and being racist, and then George Chichester walks in, the attorney. We meet him sort of mid anecdote about the Sphinx.
Yes.
He's like, but if you think about it, it's just a cat in the middle of nowhere with no nose. And they're like, oh.
Yeah.
And they start talking about the pyramids and stuff. And he's like, you know, it's the amazing thing about those is that they were like built, you know, all these years ago by guys with skin darker than mine. And he's like, that would seem to, you know, contradict our current state of opinion on human nature. And they're like, ugh.
Yeah.
I don't think these two guys are ready for Black Lives Matter.
No, I don't think they have the requisite level of wokeness quite yet.
And he does say a line that I wrote down where he's just like, he's referring to all these ancient wonders in Egypt, and he says, I just wish I had been able to see these wonders without the benefit of chains around my arms and legs.
Right, because they're sort of making small talk and saying like, oh, you're so well traveled.
He's like, I was a slave.
Yeah, exactly. And he is elaborating on the fact that his investigation into this sketchy boat that Hardy was on.
Well, we don't know that for sure yet.
Is that not confirmed?
I don't believe it has been as of yet confirmed.
Then I'll hold back. But point being, he's investigating this ship, which seemingly was trading slaves illegally by switching out the crew for like a tiny skeleton crew, right?
Yes, it was the Influence, but it changed names to the Cornwallis when its manifests secretly changed to slaves in a distant port.
Yeah.
And we know that because of its skeleton crew, the ship ran aground after 4 days. And speaking of numbers of days, Lorna is back at Casa Delaney, and I am leaping ahead a little bit here. This is probably significant to talk about the Hardy at the lake.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this scene is connected to one which comes later in the episode.
Yes.
But it's Hardy in the lake, and he's, like, dunks his head under, and then...
In his favorite pajamas. He's getting them all dirty. A.k.a. his giant shirt.
That's the closest thing he gets to washing him.
His, like, moo-moo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, actually. So he's hanging on the lake, and then he starts to, like, see his mom under... Or, like, he, like, seems to be pulled down into the lake.
Yeah, it's like he dunks his head, and then it's like he's getting pulled under, and then he sees his mom, and then...
It's like she's trying to pull him down and hold him under.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is when I was like, okay, we're just getting full-on magic happening in front of our eyes.
Right.
Which is interesting. But he manages to pull himself back out of the water, but who's been watching? Little Peepin' Robert. Has been watching from behind some trees, and he scampers off because he's like, oh, God.
Oh, my dad's a monster.
I don't know he's my dad yet, but he's really scary.
Yeah.
So now that I ruined my artful transition into this Lorna scene, she's just like, where the fuck has Delaney been? He's been gone for 2 days.
Yeah.
And Brace is like, we had a fight.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. He's probably dead. It's like, Jesus.
No, it's like, you can count on 2 things. Like, he'll be angry and he'll be alive. Or whatever. I think that's what it is.
That's what it was?
It's something to that effect. Where it's like,
completely
you can't kill Delaney, but he's going to be a dick when he shows back up.
Same as always.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's that, like, axiom? Like, you can count on 2 things? I don't know. Yeah. Never mind.
Okay.
But she's like, well, I'm going to go looking for him. Maybe I'll ask his lawyer. And Brace is like, Thoit, that guy sucks.
Yeah.
In so many words. But, you know, I still think Lorna has the feelings for him.
Yeah, I get that impression. I mean...
Well, we know last week that she's like, I'm concerned about you.
Right.
Even if it's not like a, you know, below the waist concerned.
Right, yeah, totally.
Chichester goes looking for him at the, Delaney Shipping Company headquarters down by the docks. But no one home.
Yeah. To the surprise of no one, Delaney does not keep sensible, like, hours.
No, he does not. And we learned something interesting here about at the East India Company about Strange. He's there with his stooges, and they're like, God, he knows all this shit, gal. And it comes to light that Strange has a brother with a sugar plantation in Antigua.
And they are debriefing him on essentially what Chichester knows, right?
Yeah, Chichester the cheetah.
Yeah, but Strange is pretty tripped up because it's like, oh no, you knew about this whole plot for me to make money with my brother?
Yeah.
Illegally? It's what I was getting out of it?
Yeah, and then he gives like his sort of like Dr. Doom speech where using a chess metaphor where he's like, Delaney's the horse and so is the queen. This person's a castle. All the pieces are in play.
Yeah.
Time to make a move. There's this whole thing throughout this episode that I found kind of frustrating where they keep being like, now it's war. And I'm like, what was it before?
Yeah.
You know?
I felt the exact same way. Like, this is...
Like, they both read, Sun Tzu. Even though they didn't. But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally. Yeah, there's something about this episode that feels very, like, stalling.
I agree. It was my
and
least favorite because it was just, like, a lot of padding, and it was also just, like, so bleak.
Yeah, I feel like, in general, the shows have been a little padded, like, more than they needed to be, where it's just, like...
Some of them had, like, genuine momentum, but I feel like with these prestige shows, a lot of the time, like, there's, like, a valley towards the end of the season, and then it picks right
like
back up in
up.
the last 2.
Yeah.
You know?
Delaney's gonna, like, rip a man's head off in, like, the finale or something. Just, like, unfathomable.
I didn't mean, like, an escalation in violence, just,
there probably
excitement.
will be one of those, too.
Oh, yeah, we already get a little bit of that this week. So Lorna off-screen had no luck finding Delaney at Thoit's office. Duh.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly clear what he has been doing this whole fucking time, because he's not one of the people stirring the gunpowder.
Delaney?
Yeah.
He's kind of just been farting around.
It's weird. It's like, well, why'd you go missing for 2 days, guy?
Yeah. It's like, you're like the buffest guy there. Why aren't you helping out, asshole?
Yeah, is he like legitimately upset at what Brace said?
I don't know. I mean, Delaney's purposefully unknowable, so like,
It's true.
I have no idea.
That's what makes him so hot.
He's not hot. He's fucking gross in this show.
No, I know. So Lorna's next place she goes to is the house of Zilpha and her horrible husband, who of course is just like drunk in the middle of the day. And he like won't let her leave, like blocks her path.
Won't let her see
Zilpha
either, and is being just as aggressive as you would expect from this fucking guy.
And he's like, hey, you know that guy eats people, right? They're singing this rhyme about him around town. And she's like, yeah, I know. Just let me go, please. And then Zilpha comes out of, like, another room. Her face still all bruised and cut up. But she looks and is acting like a fucking zombie.
Yeah, or just like she has, like, PTSD or something. Like, she's just very off and, like, not herself.
Yeah,
clearly.
Robotic. And she's like, I want you to leave, too. And he starts doing the rhyme. He's like, have you heard it? And goes like this. And it's all about how, like, Delaney wants to, like, eat the Prince Regent. And metaphorically, the Prince Regent is a pig.
I kind of wish it was a little bit more of a John Wick, Baba Yaga thing.
Well, I think the joke is that it is an old rhyme. And that's what Lorna says because she's able to complete it before he can finish.
Right, yeah.
She's
So
like,
then it's been reappropriated to, like, service the legend of Delaney.
Yeah, or this guy's just got it wrong because she's like, that existed before Delaney came back to London.
I mean, he's day drunk, so he's not exactly, like, in general, not the most reliable character in the world, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. But when she's like, yeah, that's from before Delaney returned to London. And he's like, before Mr. Delaney returned to London. Ah, yes, the Golden Age. Which is true. Like, a lot of people's lives seem to have been much better before Delaney returned.
Anyone's life has been improved by the return of Delaney.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I seriously can't think of anyone's life who was improved.
Maybe Atticus missed his friend?
That is a fucking stretch.
I know.
Delaney's a monster whose existence benefits no one, including himself.
It benefits the Americans.
For the time being, but I don't feel like that's necessarily going to be a match made in heaven forever, if I had to hazard a guess.
No, but they're getting something out of this arrangement.
They have an uneasy alliance.
I can't decide if now or later would be a good time to discuss my feelings and frustrations about Zilpha in this episode.
Hit me.
It's like, so she's acting really strangely, and we're building to a pretty shocking moment, but none of it, like, I feel like there was no setup for this.
Her character's been wildly inconsistent on, like, a writing level. At least for me to unpack, like, exactly what's going on with her.
I wouldn't entirely agree with that statement. I think that she's been, like, in some ways as inscrutable as her brother, but, like, I get the idea that she's maybe a little bit of two minds about Delaney. But this episode, she's just acting peculiar the whole time, and you know, we'll get to it, but I can't really tell what her motivations actually are and how we're supposed to read them.
Yeah.
And it feels like we missed a big chunk of, like, I don't know, necessary character growth to, like, bring us to this point.
Yeah, from where we left off in the last episode to where we pick up, feels like we missed a significant, like, hiccup in her development as a character.
I mean, she clearly is way more resentful of her husband now.
Yeah, like, she's, like, reached her limit with him. And our next scene is her...
Well, one quick thing that we glanced over is that Delaney goes to see Dunbarton, who's like, here's some exposition. Turns out that cholera I was lying about is actually breaking out. Go figure.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do return to the home of Zilpha and Mr. Zilpha. And she's just trying to enjoy a bath, and he's like pounding on her door. I was like, Jesus, dude, just let her have a minute, you know?
Yeah, totally.
But busts in to be like, hey, I got a job as an assessor in Australia.
Yeah, and he's really excited, which is weird that I also hate him just as much when he's like excited.
Well, it is like just another way of him sort of entrapping her, right? Like he's going to make her...
I'm going to take you away from everything you know.
Yeah,
it's going to be great.
And especially that brother of yours I hate so much.
Yeah.
Also, was a little bit charmed that like his job is like assessing criminals that are being deported to Australia. I'm like, oh, it was still that back then. That's great.
Yeah.
I want this second season to be in Australia because they arrest a lady.
That's actually kind of a cool idea.
Right?
He's like the ultimate criminal in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
But Zilpha is, again, still being very weird and robotic. And basically after he excitedly gives her the pitch, she's just like, that's too far away.
She's like, yeah, fuck that. I mean, like, she's standing up to him.
Yeah, but it's also just very like, no, I'm not going to do that. Get out of here. I want to finish my goddamn bath. Like,
yeah. But she wasn't. She was very deferent to him in front of Lorna, but in private she seems to be trying to exhibit a bit more agency because I think she's fucking fed up.
Yeah, I would say that is fair.
But yeah, but her demeanor and her
manners entirely changed in a way that's like very curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, is there anything else you want to cover on that?
I don't think so.
I think we're going to keep talking about this once.
Yeah,
the next
Zilpha will
big
come
scene.
up again. Don't you worry. But yeah, they're done with their gunpowder, or at least most of it.
With like a big batch of it is all good to go.
And so their scheme is to they put it in a bunch of coffins.
And then they're like, "Oh, we're taking like dead bodies who got the cholera.
Yeah,
trying
they put
to dispose
a cholera
them."
warning on it. They all put on these things that sort of cover their mouths and noses.
Yep.
So it looks like they're like, we don't want to get sick.
Yeah.
And Hardy is part of this delivery, and he takes a moment to grab young Robert and like shove him up against a wall and like put his hand on his throat and be like, you saw something in the woods.
Yeah.
I saw you seeing something in the woods. And he's like, I didn't see anything. He's like, yeah, I want you to keep not seeing anything.
Yeah.
You little shit.
Yeah. So he provides another emotional scar for this child.
Yeah.
And then puts on his little cholera mask.
Doing a great job raising this kid.
Proper papa.
Or like rather not raising this kid and then showing up after a number of years and being this like fucking boogeyman
making him
in his
literally
life.
stir gunpowder.
Yeah. And then threatening him on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, and you know, the guy taking care of the kid who lives on the farm, Ibbotson, he's been watching everything the whole time, and he's like, man, I'm sad about what's going on.
Yeah, but he's getting up in some business that perhaps he should not.
That's true. That is very true. So, you know, they ride into town.
Yeah, the whole party.
Yes, exactly. RSVP to the Hardy Party. This whole, like, a lot of this episode is like fucking gunpowder business. With like one or two like super dynamic sort of bombshell scenes. But I was like, I don't care how they get the gunpowder to the Americans, you know?
Yeah, like we were talking about, it reminded me of like a lot less interesting version of like Wages of Fear or Sorcerer or what have you, where it's like they have all this unstable cargo and they're going over cobblestones or whatever, but just not very dramatic. Like the way it's pulled off is just not terribly interesting, unfortunately.
You know what I would argue is the most unstable cargo of all?
Tell me.
Joe Pesci under witness protection and Lethal Weapon 2. That is some unstable cargo.
I wouldn't want to deal with Leo Getz.
No. He's got so many peeves.
Yeah, that's but he's also a part of the family by Lethal Weapon 4, you know?
Oh, he so is. I love that it's never explained why he bleaches his hair.
Yeah, it's a strange character quirk, to say the least. It's also so weird that they kept Leo Getz around.
Oh yeah, like people
these
love
cops
him,
hang out
right?
with like a con man, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like unlegit by 4. I think he's legit in 3, too.
He's in every single one after 2.
No, but I think he's like not a criminal anymore. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah,
he's
he
like a
reforms.
real estate agent in 3.
Something
like that. Yeah, so he's fleecing people probably on houses.
This has been Lethal Weapon Talk. Okay, I mean, yeah, we're just saying all this because I think this is supposed to be a suspenseful set piece with them sort of trying to get the gunpowder to the Americans. I didn't find it to be as such.
No, yeah. No.
I never felt that they were in any real peril, but basically the fuzz stops and was like, what's in there? And they're like, family of 6, they died of cholera.
And like, there's a kid who...
Yeah, there's a kid who died. And they're like, bullshit. So
and dude, the main guy investigating them has a torch, so you're instantly like, oh god. And then the main constable or whatever goes around to like take a gander, and they open up the coffin, and there's a kid in there. Hardy's kid.
Robert's just playing possum.
Mm-hmm.
Very smart little boy.
Yeah. And that guy's like, all right, get out of here.
Oh, God. I don't even have my weird, like, beak mask on that everyone's wearing. Very freaky.
Yeah, that really creeps me out.
Ibbotson at the, now abandoned factory is sort of creeping around, and he sees the Hardy symbol, we'll call it. The scarification bird sun
Hardy
thing.
likes to carve into wood and or his body.
He carved it into a beam, apparently,
Yeah.
and Ibbotson sees it, and he's like, I'm going to do the whole Father, Son, Holy Spirit thing, because I'm like, that's the devil's kind of business. And Dunbarton is stoked to receive most of his gunpowder. Some of it ain't ready yet. Still got a
bunch of it's
stay in the oven.
unstable
Yeah.
and like, whatever, marinating.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, man, back to the stew metaphor. I love it. Gotta leave that thing on the burner a little longer. And basically, Hardy's like, hey, in exchange for this, you're going to give my ship safe passage through the American blockade.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, sure. Can do.
Sounds good.
I think we got a deal here, brah.
Direct quote, Dumbarton.
Yeah, exactly. Not many people know, but brah is the original Victorian
Stephen Knight
terminology.
really pulled back the curtain on that one this week.
We cut to Ibbotson alone in front of the fire, drinking and thinking. And he's not looking at a crucifix on his mantle, but
Might as well be.
might as well be. I think he's thinking about God.
Yeah, he's having some Jesus thoughts.
He's waiting
Feels
for
like he's
God
a bad
out.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's now that Delaney finally decides to come home.
Yep.
And does so by, like, collapsing in a chair.
And trying to, like, angrily pull off his boots,
Yep.
throw his hat on the couch.
He looks more slumped than I've ever seen a human slump in their lives. He gets some brandy, and he's just like a deflated balloon on
Yeah.
a love seat. And Lauren is like, I was worried about you. You're gone for so long. And he's like, yeah, who gives a fuck? Like, he just doesn't care. And she's, again, trying to warn him, like, the company is out there offering £10 for information on your whereabouts. The Crown's coming after you, too. How long do you think you can keep them at each other's throats before your life is, like, genuinely endangered?
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, whatever.
Yeah, that kind of was Delaney's whole vibe for a lot of this week.
I do think he is finally foolishly arrogant in this episode. He gets a real comeuppance.
Yeah, I would say that's true. I don't know. In general, I just wonder about his, like, level of strategy because, like, he constantly is foiled in, like, interesting ways,
Yeah,
just
but
like, you
he's
should've-
also like this master planner that's always like 2 steps ahead of everyone. And it's only this week that he seems to finally not be.
Yes and no. I mean,
Or at
you
least
know
be at the
about
most
Lorna.
disadvantaged.
Like, Lorna could have blown up in his face.
That's true.
And could potentially in the...
But he sort of neutered that situation real fast, but just be like, hey, you want to be roommates?
Well, and also
Seemingly
her
that's
just
all it
not
took.
being, like, all that... Like, she's a bit of a chill customer. She's like, yeah, this is gonna work.
She's like kind of my favorite right now. She's like the voice of reason.
She's not the only person who is not just, like, bum me out.
Yeah. Well, and Brace is a bit of a voice of reason, but I don't trust him anymore.
I'm inclined to agree
After our
with you.
theorizing last week.
Yeah.
I have my doubts about Butler Brace.
Same.
And then we come to a real big scene.
Yep.
Okay, I'll start. Shitty husband's asleep, fully clothed, weirdly. And
well, he's like
Zilpha-
probably passed out drunk.
Yeah,
my
I would
assumption.
assume so.
Zilpha pulls a big ass needle out of a desk drawer.
The same one that she was like contemplating at the end of last
futzing with.
episode. Yeah. And she just walks on over to the bed.
Yep.
Searches around on his chest for, I'm assuming, like, betwixt the ribs area.
Yeah.
It's a little too low to be his heart.
Yeah, but I mean, there's all kinds of, fun organs going on in there.
She's got a real pair of crazy eyes on.
Yeah.
He wakes up and he's like, "Hey, babe, what you doing?"
And then she's like, oh, no.
"Oh, you fucking stabbing me to death?" Like, give me the craziest look ever.
The biggest needle I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, she's just straight up murders
What is
him.
the purpose of that needle?
I believe we see it later in the episode. So, well.
Oh, I must be forgetting. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Hardy is once again in his gym jams.
Yes, his giant shirt.
He's coming downstairs with a candle, hearing some raps on the door.
It's his boyfriend shirt.
Yeah, Hardy's all out. He wears his own boyfriend shirt.
Yeah. What's weird is that they sell those. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, just buy a man's shirt.
Yeah, it does not make sense.
Who's the, like, asshole
The
marketing
marketing guy who cornered that market?
He's like, "Hey, guys, we can sell men's shirt to women."
Yeah.
Heterosexual. Oh, I guess, who knows. I don't want to open up a can of worms about
I'm
the gendered nature of
the man's shirt, of the
Yeah.
boyfriend shirt.
Yeah.
Totally.
Hardy hears a knock, but he's in his jams because he hears a knock on his door. Who is it?
Zilpha.
It's Zilpha.
She-
She's covered in rain and like...
And she's all bruised up still. Just
Oh, yeah. She hasn't healed. She doesn't have, like, Logan powers.
Well, Logan doesn't have Logan powers anymore.
Dude, I know. I can't wait.
2017,
It's gonna be so good.
Same.
And he's like, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah, and she's being very, affectionate. Would that be a fair description?
Yeah, it's a bit of an understatement. I mean, she rushes up and hugs him, but is like, "My lips are on your neck."
Yeah.
I'm
Talking right into your ear.
Does it make you horny, baby? Are you feeling ready? But he's like, "What did you do?"
Yeah, he instantly knows something's up because she's acting very different.
And she says, "I killed him, just like you said." And my reading of Hardy in this scene is that he's like, "I didn't fucking say to do that."
Yeah, that confused me for sure.
I mean, he could easily have done that because we know he's
With
like
his sex magic?
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's like, starts a fire for her, and he's like, "Oh God, okay, where's the body?" She's like in the bedroom, but she's acting like this is what's so weird about her in this episode, right? Because it feels like there's a total turn. So she's like a weird PTSD robot. Then she kills her husband, and then she turns into this sort of like manic, like this guy she's been rejecting the whole time. She's like suddenly super back into and like so pleased with herself to have like murdered a man, like just has no compunction about it.
Yeah,
It seems like she's under a spell.
That's my assumption as well, which I think there's evidence in this episode to point to.
And is it Delaney's spell?
Why
Why does he seem so put off by this?
No, I mean, I have a theory that I don't understand, but I have a hot take that maybe I'm wrong about.
I have a theory too. I can't. Okay, we'll get to it. At
Yeah,
the
yeah,
end.
yeah.
Or maybe it's just his like frustration and like I got to get rid of a body.
Yeah, it's like Brace is gonna go pick up the body and just make it like.
No, he's gonna do it.
Well, he says that he'll have Brace send like a carriage, and then he'll take her.
No, Brace is sending a carriage to take her home. He's taking care of the body right now.
Okay.
I don't think Brace knows shit. But his scheme, which is not a bad scheme, he has the body taken to Dunbarton, who pretends to be like, "Does this guy have cholera?" "Oh yeah, he's got it bad."
Oh yeah.
This guy's got
You
like
can smell the cholera 10 feet away.
Oh yeah, he's got 100% bad times cholera. You better bury this body as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Which I admit is a pretty good scheme. I also wondered why he didn't just hit up his coroner friend from the first episode.
That's a good point. I mean, maybe it's just because, like, at this point, the Americans need him, so it's like, why not just, like, milk that? Because, he's got to be getting rid of bodies. Why not?
Well, they got to follow up on that, cholera exposition from earlier in the episode.
Well, there's that, too.
Yes. And the Strange is psyched because he's like, hey, guess what? Some good Samaritan finally ratted on that old scumbag. Yeah, exactly. I hope his like Delaney's final act of revenge is just like shitting on Strange's lawn, and he's like runs out of the balcony to the bathroom like Delaney.
I really can't capture that old man like tremor of rage. Like I feel like that's a thing you have to have a certain amount of like age to truly do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like Jonathan Pryce is channeling something.
It's like
there's a real life Delaney in his world.
It kind of reminds me sometimes of the old man in Dennis the Menace.
I was about to say,
just like Dennis.
I love the idea of Jonathan Pryce having some like munchkin torturing him constantly. But anyhow, some quote unquote good Samaritan has ratted out to the East India Company the location of Delaney's farm.
Which is bad because, as mentioned, not all the gunpowder's out of there.
No, exactly. Good thing that Delaney's narc Robert is there. Not Robert, I'm sorry, Godfrey.
Yeah.
Godfrey's there. So as soon as Godfrey's done like putting pen to paper, he like runs over to Delaney's house, catches him at just the right time, and he's like, they're coming to your farm, man.
And Delaney's like, you shouldn't be here.
Yeah. And so now he's got to deal with this.
Delaney's whole life is just like, oh, I'll deal with it.
It's like, well, dude, you kind of started this.
Yeah, it's always his fault. Like, if you weren't trying to, like, stir a bunch of shit, then, like, none of this would have occurred. Like, you're the one who's, like, escalating everything.
And in the case of the gunpowder, literally stirring up some shit.
Yeah, true. Too true.
Yeah.
A lot of shit.
Bit on the nose, Taboo. But he arrives to find Chomley guarding the farm because he's like, you can't move this fucking gunpowder, man. It's still too volatile.
Yeah, it's like if you take this over cobblestones, like that shit is going to explode.
Yes.
Like, what are you thinking? And
or he's like, well, the fucking company is on its way here, so we got to move it one way or the other.
Yeah.
And his solution is actually pretty.
It's pretty
genius.
elegant. Yeah.
They just load it up into boats. I will add that. Oh God! Prior to leaving Chomley, he hands him something. It's a man's tongue.
Yeah.
And we see a priest go into a confessional. It should be noted that the guy who ratted on Delaney did so to a priest. The priest told the company, ergo.
For like 25 pounds or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This priest goes into the confessional, be like, oh, you again?
Yeah.
And then whatever he sees on the other side of the screen, he's horrified by. It turns out it's Ibbotson, and he's had his tongue cut out.
Yep.
So there you go. That's why my notes say, Ibbotson, you fuck.
Yeah.
Had a crisis of conscience at just the wrong time.
Yeah. No kidding. But then the troops arrive to raid the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And what do they find, Jason?
They don't find shit, man.
That's true. Why do they not find shit?
As stated moments ago, they loaded it onto some boats
There it is.
in the nearby river, and they used that to take it down to the waterfront.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the next thing, well, I want to make sure I got this right. Yeah, the next thing that happens is that the Stooges show up to Strange's office, and then they walk in, and he just sighs, and he's like, "Is this the face of abject failure?"
Yeah.
It's great. It's like
British Alex Winter is absolutely the face of abject failure.
totally both of these guys, because the other numbskull's the one who like had the shitty plan to kill Hardy.
Right. Yeah.
I do love when Jonathan Pryce gets to sort of chew it up on this show and be like, just exasperated.
Yeah, totally.
And next we go to the funeral for Shit Husband.
Yeah. Mr. Zilpha.
Yeah. Thank God he's finally fucking dead.
Yeah, dude. No kidding. I was getting real sick of his shit.
Yeah.
Because he didn't add anything to the show other than, like, did you know that everything was awful?
Yeah. In a weird touch, Delaney arrives with a bottle of brandy, having basically a street beer, and offers to just dig the guy's grave.
With a giant pickaxe.
Yeah. I was like, you don't have to do this, and it's going to look weird that you did.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Okay, man.
Yeah.
Even though they're two perfectly good grave robbers right there next to him.
Yep.
I don't get it.
Grave diggers.
You know, now that I'm looking at it again, I think I know what's going on here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What do you got?
Because he keeps
What am I
digging long
missing?
enough for Zilpha to, like, exit the mausoleum and notice him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is like a foreplay thing.
This is like a sex thing?
Yeah.
Sex magic thing?
No.
Just a sex thing.
It's like, do I make you ready? No, it's like, it's a kinky, fucked up, twisted thing.
Oh, well, I will certainly concede that it's twisted.
Like, does it turn you on that I'm anything? Because he stands at the back of the cemetery and stares at her.
Yeah.
And she stares back, and then it starts raining, and it's like, does it turn you the fuck on that I just dug a grave for your husband that you murdered for me for our secret, incestual love?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's weird, but yeah,
It's
that's
like,
certainly
hey, babe.
that's how they're playing it.
Did you find that dead rat I left in your locker? So goth, right?
Yeah.
So he goes back to her place, walks in, and just says, take that dress off.
Isn't
Take
it like-
that fucking dress
There
off
it is.
now.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm into it.
She's more than down to comply with that demand.
Let's have crazy, fucked up murder, sibling, incest sex.
Yep.
And they do.
Yeah, and then we get some real weird flashes going on.
Yeah.
That make this already disturbing sex scene all the worse.
Yeah, exactly. Delaney's just trying to finish, but all I can picture is
His
mom
mom.
trying to murder him as an infant.
Yeah.
That complicates things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It makes him, he freaks out a bit. He gets a little choky, but I can't tell if that's like a consensual choky or not consensual.
Yeah,
choky.
there are also some very weird, like, incesty shots of him hallucinating and kissing his mom in a way that reads as romantic.
That's
and
true.
then cuts
As
to
an
him
adult.
being as an adult, and then cuts to him being an infant in her hands.
And his mom kissing the infant before trying to give it the ultimate dunk.
Yeah.
Just a permanent baptism.
The ultimate dunk. Oh my god. Okay, so I want to hear your hot take, and I'm curious if it's the same as mine. You said you had a reading on what you think is
do we want
Zilpha
to? No,
being...
let's save that for the end.
Okay, alright,
Yeah.
hold off.
This next scene, I'm not sure. I think it's just meant to establish that Delaney is in a bad way right now.
Yeah.
He seems to be on a bit of a downward spiral, is how I would describe this episode. He's just hanging out in the room where he's keeping all the gunpowder, striking a flint over and over.
Yeah, I don't know. If I had just had that sexual experience, maybe I'd want to be doing the same thing.
It's just, I feel like it's perfectly in character, but it's such a like, I don't give a fuck about anything move, you know, like,
Yeah.
it's like, we get it, you're bad, you don't
It's
care
kind
if
of
you blow up.
Leto Joker damage style situation.
Yeah.
Like, we get how badass you are, man.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Meanwhile, down at the docks, a bunch of kids are following around a man with a boat on his hat for some reason as he sings some song.
Yeah.
I want to know more about Boat Hat. The character we're calling British Alex Winter, is in his carriage and he like pokes his head out. He's like, "Oh, by the way, Strange says it's war now. Be seeing you."
And then his boat promptly explodes.
Yeah, his lovely, lovely boat explodes. Yeah, it sucks to be him. He's not happy about his boat exploding.
No, he's very unhappy. Delaney's not big on people crossing him.
No, he finds it displeasing. I would say. I did like the this means war. This whole this means war back and forth thing too. Just only because it made me think of
This Means War.
No, which we have to watch if we start doing Tom Hardy movies, right? Ah, God. No, because it makes me think of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Oh yeah, sure. Fair enough.
It's not even the same line, but I do love the part where that guy's like, Germany just declared war on the Jones boys. It's so fun.
And it's really good.
I'm like, good luck with your war on the Jones boys, guy.
Yeah, how do you think that's going to go?
Turns out the dad has got some moves. He just remembered his Charlemagne, okay? But Hardy goes to deliver that same message to Godfrey. He basically shows up at his secret
night hangout spot.
Let's call it that. And holds his scary knife to his throat, and he's like, "I'm here to send a message. Tell Strange it's war too, okay?"
Yeah, which is the least. You can't come back to someone after it's you blew up his boat, and then just have to be like, well, fuck you too. Tell them that.
Yeah,
it's not exactly that badass.
That's what I'm saying. He's clearly desperate and already on this downward spiral. So for him to do something that dumb,
it's kind of just pathetic.
Oh yeah, well yeah, he's gonna get it too, man.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Strange better watch his back. It's okay, but then a distant sound rings. I believe it would be an Atticus alert. Because he goes to go see Atticus, and he's like, "Hey man, I want a boat." And Atticus is like, "I can't get you a boat.
Yeah, that's not what I do.
I don't do boats." And he's like, "Well, hey, somebody ratted me out. I think it was the same guy as last time."
Yeah.
And so we cut outside of this pub or whatever, and that dude, the guy who lost a thumb.
Yeah, British Norm from Cheers.
Yes, British Norm from Cheers.
That one's also pretty fair, I gotta say.
Oh, it so is. He's having a leak against a wall in an alley, just, enjoying himself. Hardy comes up from behind him, stabs him right in the neck with that horrible knife.
Yep.
You hear some, wet stabbing sounds off screen.
Yeah.
And
he cuts out his heart.
Yeah, he hands Atticus a heart. Does he hand Atticus a heart or does he keep it? I can't remember.
I think he just says you can keep the heart. He just cuts out the heart, and I think you hear a wet,
Yeah. Oh, God. But I did write this down because there's an interesting... Atticus says an interesting thing. He's like, there are two possibilities. Either he betrayed... Can't speak right now. There are two possibilities. Either he betrayed you because you cut off his thumb, or you cut off his thumb because you knew he would betray you. Possibility 1 is reason. Possibility 2 is witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which possibility I think it was. I feel like it could be a combination, sort of. Maybe he intuited that this guy was a rat, so he cut off his thumb to scare him, but then this guy ratted him out because this maniac cut off his thumb.
Right. Yeah, totally.
And I think Hardy killing him is also sort of a desperate move.
Yeah, I don't think it was terribly well considered. He also, leaves the body out. He instructs Atticus to leave the body out where it can be found or seen.
As he's wont to do.
Yeah, but it makes...
He's basically a serial killer.
Yeah, that's completely fair. But he's obviously trying to, create a fearful myth around himself now more than ever, considering the fact that they've, declared war.
Right, he's been doing it, but he's doing it even more now.
Yeah.
So next he goes to Helga's, and he's like, "Hey, can you help me with a boat?" And she's like, "No."
No. Of course. I think he tells her to just, go, find me a captain, and I'll, slit his throat.
That's what she says, yeah. Or he says, yeah. Yeah,
It makes it sound like he's about to, steal someone's, keys to their Honda. As
exactly. Solicit a guy, kill him, I'll put on his hat and pretend to be the captain.
Yeah, well, this makes no sense.
Dude, you are wasted on brandy. And he is wasted on brandy.
Shithoused, for sure.
And then he, in a rage, he, knocks some shit over and...
He's throwing, a straight-up tantrum.
He grabs a guy's thing of brandy.
This is so good.
And what does he say?
This is mine.
Yeah. Yes, that's what it is. This is mine. And bleary-eyed stumbles out of the place. And then when next we see him, he's down at the docks again. He stumbles towards the docks, and he's just staring at the docks being like, I need a boat. Give me a boat.
Yeah.
And he like throws his empty bottle of brandy into the water and starts wading into it like, I'm gonna get a boat.
Yeah. And then Winter shows up.
Yes, Winter is here.
And he essentially says to her, like, I'm not fit to be around you right now. She also brings him another bottle of brandy, which, talk about over-serving.
Yeah, this proves to be a miscalculation on her part.
Yeah, that is true.
But he's like, yeah, go away, I'm drunk. It's not safe for you to be around me right now. She's like, oh, man, but I kind of like you for some reason. She hands him the bottle of brandy, and he starts to drink it. And she's staring at him like, this is sad. And then he wakes up in what I imagine to be
Most
worst
shit.
shit and mud, face
Yeah.
down and shit and mud, like the worst like morning after ever. You're like, what happened?
You're going to have the most insane pink eye,
Yeah, this is like literally the dirtiest he's ever been on the show.
which is truly saying something.
It is, but it's because he's literally covered like head to toe in mud.
Yeah.
And he like finds his hat and it's covered in mud, and he's like, I'll put it on.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, God, he looks terrible.
It's real bad. And he's just sort of like, what happened last night?
Yes.
Like, kind of stumbling around, being like, where am I? What's going down?
He is down at the docks.
He's still at the docks. He didn't make it far.
He didn't make it far, but he sees something out of a corner of his eye, and it's not good.
No, it is not. Because it is Winter's body, and I believe she's also been...
Her stomach's been cut open.
Yeah.
So
In seemingly classic Delaney fashion.
yeah, Delaney. I mean, I think we're meant to read it, but we may find out otherwise. I'm pretty sure he blacked out and murdered her in a cannibalistic rage.
Yeah, I believe that is true.
And that is the lovely, uplifting note on which we end this episode of television.
Yeah, man.
Which I think it's safe to say we both were not so hot on.
No, this, we talked about this a bit, but I'm not, in general, very keen on this episode, and it just made me, I don't know. Last week's also gave me a certain amount of pause and just made me feel like, ugh.
This is ugly.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm totally comfortable with, like, ugly things.
Don't you own Sallow?
I was about to say, yeah, I do own Sallow on Blu-ray. Like, I'll definitely, like...
Don't you own Antichrist on Blu-ray?
My mom bought me Antichrist on Christmas one year, which is, like, one of my favorite Christmas presents.
It's like in the name that it's anti-Christmas.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
I think is, like, why my mom did it, because she thought I was funny. I'm sure she had no idea what that movie was about, but it definitely tickles me to this day. So, yeah, I'm definitely more than comfortable to, like, watch things that are fucked up, but this just feels, like, bleak, and, like, I don't know what it's in service of. And, like, that's the thing. If I want to watch something bleak, I want to at least, like, get something out of it, like, emotionally.
Sure.
Right now, I kind of don't. I just get a sense of, like, oh, Delaney's, like, a rogue badass, but I don't even get why he's, like, murdering motherfuckers half the time.
I think in the second half of the season, he's becoming less of a rogue badass and more of just, like
a murderer?
Yeah, like an awful person, a villain.
Yeah.
I mean, that he just murdered a child.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Possibly
I just kind of don't...
conscripted his half-sister into murdering her husband so they could have incestual sex.
Yeah, and he essentially, like, for all intents and purposes, raped his
half-sister,
yeah.
Abuses his child that hasn't been fathering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like a monster, and I mean, that's in the design, but, like, he just isn't, like, fun to watch. Which, again, I don't have to have likable characters,
Sure.
but
there were times in the first half of the season where he was fun to watch. Many times. Didn't make him sympathetic, but he was like a engaging character.
I'm just slowly finding, at least over the course of the last 2 episodes, the show being something of, like, a bear to watch, where I'm, like, not having the most, I don't know. It's like, it's sort of a laborious sit for me right now. And I'm curious if that's going to change.
Well, yeah, and I don't think it helped that this episode was fairly boring in terms of, like, not
a lot happened.
Not a lot of incident.
Yeah.
Except when there was a lot of incident. So,
and the only incidents were like deeply troubling.
Yeah. Your mom tried to murder you as a child. Your stepsister killed her husband, and your ship blew up. Oh, and then you killed a child. Maybe.
And you boned your half-sister again, and...
Wow.
When do you want to get to your...
Theory?
This is the predictions territory.
Yeah, my
when we're ready for
predictions theory?
that. Yeah.
I think that this is the perfect time to transition
Okay.
right into that.
Cool.
And stop me if this is a similar theory to what you have going on. But I think in some sort of mystical sense that the mom is not entirely out of the picture.
Oh, it has to be that.
Okay, you were thinking the same thing?
The mom is for sure Pazuzuing the sister or something.
That's what I think too.
Where it's
Or
like,
both of
oh,
them.
I'm fucking my mom. Like, is how I read it. Where he was...
Oh.
Because of that, that's how I read it, where it's like, oh, my mom's spirit is somehow in my sister's body because he was meddling with
that far, but
her
that makes so
magic.
much sense.
That's
It
why
also
he would
explains
like
why-
recoil, and the kiss thing, where it's like you get the
Okay, yeah.
That's how I'm reading it.
I didn't even pick up on that like a dum-dum.
Well,
I
and
was just
she's
going off
acting.
of,
She's acting like fucking Reagan in The Exorcist.
which is
too.
kind of makes last week make a little more sense. Like she might have actually been possessed.
And it was also like her, yeah, potentially. I mean, that reading at least would make it make more sense to me.
Yes, and it still works as a scene that plays both ways, and I appreciate what they were trying to say about like the evil that these men were inflicting upon her. But
Right.
I think she's totally possessed by the mom, and that explains why Delaney acts so surprised when she was like, "I did what you told me and killed my husband."
She's hearing voices maybe and attributing them to the wrong person. So Delaney's like, I didn't tell you to do that.
But I'll get rid of the body for you. Does this mean we can fuck again? Yeah. Okay, so we had the same theory.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, I think it's laid out pretty clearly. The clues are there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my one and only prediction.
Same. Yeah.
Except that I think, the possibility still stands that Brace is
Is a baddie.
or
Or
a
duplicitous
rat.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not for any sort of sinister motivations. I think more of just like a general concern for the well-being of all of London
Yeah.
and himself,
Delaney is essentially like a national security crisis embodied in one man.
yes.
Like he's throwing the security of the crown and like the biggest company under the crown in question.
That's so true.
So yeah, that's not great.
No, it's not. Do we have any other observations we'd like to impart or tangents we'd like to go on?
I don't think so. I feel like we covered this rough episode pretty well.
Okay, and our homework for next week is to look up gun technology circa
I'm so
when this
sorry I
takes
bothered
place.
to have that thought, but
Totally fine. Also, what Leo Getz's job is in Lethal Weapon 3.
I want to know. Yeah,
And I remembered one that we never followed up on that might be hard to get to the bottom of, which is what's up with like decorative pig masks.
Oh, great call. I'm
Yeah,
super curious
yeah.
about that one.
Yeah.
If that's like a British thing.
Yeah, or just a
Or just
rich, creepy people thing.
Yeah, totally.
All right, well,
Cool.
until next, hopefully Tuesday, signing off.
Yep. We'll see you next time, or hear you, or you'll hear us.
Yes, you'll hear us.
Yeah,
we won't hear you.
We can't hear you.
We can't see you. We can't hear you.
Mhm.
I don't know what you're doing, if you're on the treadmill or you're doing your dishes or you're taking a shower. This is the times I cast the most. Okay.
Very sensible.
Yeah. All right. On that note, have a good night, y'all.
Goodbye.
You give me the sweetest taboo. You're giving me the sweetest taboo. Too good for me.
This has been a podcast presented by
Hard to find media.
Subscribe to Hard to Find Media on YouTube.com/Hard to Find Media Network. This shit is free. Share it. Blast it. Fuck it.